Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. We are going today to discuss, what's some skills? How do you get more force into your drawings? How do you get to see them? We're going to share with you like an extremely powerful and very simple tactic to doing so. One of my favorites, maybe one I need to bring up even more and more in premium and in mentorship, because it's just that strong. So, and I dare say, I think that this tactic has become popularized because of the Force drawing books, because I did not see this really at all prior to the books. I'm sure it did exist. I don't think the books are the only reason, but it really became popular and still is today, and it keeps getting more and more ground. And I think it's because of the ubiquitousness of the books. I hope it is. All I could do is hope that it actually is. But so before we get into that, let's say hello to the gang. All right, how you doing, Rotunjay?
Hey guys, I'm doing good. And I'm ready to reveal this not secret, but a very underrated thing, I would say, which is very important.
Yeah,
So
underrated. Yeah,
yeah, it's very underrated. Like people really don't think about it at all. So
exactly.
try to appreciate it a little bit more today in today's stream.
Sounds good. How are you doing, Swinley?
Good. Ready to teach people how to see arrows everywhere after this stream.
Rotunjay put all this effort into not bringing it up, and you just put it right out there.
Yeah, I think super hard.
He's always the one who ruins it too. He always like takes it, and he always like spills the beans. And you and I are always the more restrained ones. The audience may not even be aware of that, but I'm aware of it. And today he held it back, and you did it, Swinley.
Well, it's in your background, Mike.
It is my background. It's very true, but you never know. They may not be paying attention to all this stuff going on behind me. Well, let's get to it. Swinley's thrown us right into the fire here, and which is fine. It's arrows, right? Like arrows are so damn important, right? So important. And as I was saying before, I think they've really become ubiquitous. I see more and more use over the last 20 years of other artists trying to use the symbol of arrows to, try to discuss what we're talking about here, right? Like where do different, they'll call it flow, they'll call it different things, of course. But how to get that going on in the body. Really, it's about force, right? We're trying to understand force. And the idea of using arrows in your drawing is really important. But it's not just arrows, right? It's the fact that we have to give arrows meaning, right? And I think that's what's important. And that's what we really want to talk about today. The irony to that ubiquitousness of seeing arrows all over the place is that very often those other artists are putting the arrows in the wrong place, right? And that's why hopefully you guys come here, is to recognize, there's a right way of doing things, there's a wrong way of doing things. And we want to make sure that we create rhythms that really work in the body, and it's based off of human anatomy. And, and we're kind of the ownership of that space, right? To help you guys understand how to differentiate between that and know that you're getting the right education to create figures that are fluid, that work based on anatomy, and you're coming to home base, right? This is home base for all of that. So thank you for coming. So let's talk about this. I want to get started a little more broadly. I like getting more open-minded about all this. So this is Max Planck, a fellow German. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. Now, isn't that exciting? I love that. We could just stop right there and end today's stream, right? And just leave it at that. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force, right? So I can imagine being a new student coming to drawingforce.com and the backwardsness that it must feel like to say we're not going to start with boxes and perspective and structure and anatomy. We're going to start with force, right? And you can look at other artists. It's the same thing as saying form follows function, right? Form follows function is why we're doing this, right? Because I really do believe that things kind of start with an energy, a function, and therefore they are designed and built the way they are because of that, right? We're built to be living organisms on this planet. We ended up becoming the most intelligent of all living organisms on the planet, although some would maybe second guess that, right? But, you know, our brain is protected because of that. It's higher off the ground because of that. We have our ribs to protect our vital organs, right? Like it's no accident, right? Like we've gone through this evolution to become designed in this amazing way to function the way that we need to in order to survive and to keep our species moving forward, right? So that's it, right? That's it. Everything else is like man-made, and we designed it outside of that, right? We built homes to protect ourselves and weapons to protect ourselves, beds to sleep on comfortably, right? So all this stuff, all these things come out of function, right? They're forces that lead to it. Now, before we jump into it, a couple of other things I want to go over there. So this is Planck as well. I love this quote. It's probably one of my favorite all-time quotes ever. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? That is, first of all, I agree with that 100%. I think that's amazing, right? Like really allow that one to sink in, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? I believe in that 100%. Right. And hopefully some of you have witnessed that, hopefully just by coming to us with drawingforce.com and with this YouTube channel, you start going out into your day-to-day life and go, wow, I see the force of my dog running around. I'm aware of my own forces when I'm standing in the kitchen making dinner or lunch. When I watch that sporting event, right, I see the forces. I watched the new Creed movie a couple of nights ago. Lots of force, right? It's a lot of boxing. Lots of force. And you can bet that I have my filter, because it's part of my life now, of watching that, of seeing the forces and how they're posed and standing and moving, right? So perspective, right? Perspective is a great one. You might start learning perspective, and then you start to recognize it in the world that you live in. I always call it like the Matrix moment, right? Because it's always been there, right? And that's so weird. It's always been right under your nose. And yet now you have the opportunity to see it, and you start seeing the angles, and you start walking down the hallway and feeling space, right? Like you're moving through space and time. So like I said, 100% love this quote. Remember this quote, go write it down in your sketchbook, right? Just so mind bending and so grand, just so grand and so relevant to what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. All right. So the best tool for seeing and drawing rhythms are arrows, right? We want to see arrows. They're abstract. It's not, like I said, it's just an arrow. I mean, there's arrows on street signs. Like that's not what we're talking about, okay? We're trying to understand that we're converting this arrow into the idea that arrows equal force. Right? Arrows equal force. I hope that all of you leave here today saying, I'm going to try and draw with arrows. Every line you put down, you might soft touch your way into it and then turn it into an arrowhead, right? Really start using the idea of arrows, right? And how they function, right? How they work, okay? So arrows equal force, right? Leave here today with that. Arrows equal force. Very important. So the first arrow is actually an invisible one. You can draw it, you can make it visible, right? Imagine that. You have the power to make gravity visible by drawing down straight downward arrows on your piece of paper or on your digital device, whatever surface you're drawing on. Draw some arrows, right? Draw some vertical arrows. So green here represents gravity, right? So green represents gravity, and those downward arrows, that really helps. When I started learning this, I literally did this. And when I teach in the schools and stuff, I would have students draw a little circle with a G in it with a downward arrow. And I'd say, every sheet of paper, I want you to re-represent the concept of gravity. It's a tricky one to keep in your mind because you're around it your entire life. It's invisible. We take it for granted, right? There's no way we don't. We just take it for granted. The only way you didn't is if like you were maybe a mover, right? And I've had students that are movers, right? It's like you're a mover, you are damn well aware of gravity, right? You get aware of, friction, and you get aware of the weight of things. You get aware of how is the best way to carry it. If you have two guys carrying it, how are you going to do that? There's special tools to carry things. I used to install washers and dryers, refrigerators and stoves. I did that for a little while for Sears when I was like 17, 18 years old, and how you dealt with a trolley and how you carried or moved a refrigerator, how you carried it. We had to move stuff up and down stairs, like really heavy equipment you were talking about, like like a huge stove, let's say, to a second floor. Like, how do you do that, right? You're very aware of gravity. As an artist, probably not so, right? Not so much. So you want to bring an awareness over there, okay? So gravity is number one. Number two is directional force. So this is what you start drawing, right? You put this onto your artwork. You want to start grabbing, reference that you feel is dynamic and try to draw those figures with arrows, right? Really try to, every line, like I said, build it up, feel its energy, and put an arrowhead on it, okay? Any questions so far before I go forward? Mike is in the chat. Start at the force drawing 10th anniversary. Oh, right. Oh, that's you, Swanley. You're saying, okay, hello, I'm trying to get better at posing for 3D animation. I've noticed that you have a lot of content and books that teach posing. Not sure where to start. Yeah, I see. So yes, definitely, as Swanley said, 10th anniversary edition. Today's stream is already so interesting. Awesome. If I see, I wonder if there's an evil make in that chat. Or just wait. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's anything here to the content. Sometimes I see arrows in online guides and it feels like it's just, yeah, exactly. I agree with Dark Knight. As I feel I guess I feel the responsibility for the arrow, like making sure it's being used right. I don't want to become too much of an arrow policeman or a cop, but I do feel some of that. I've seen arrows misused, just misinterpreted, misused. Like, they probably, maybe they saw one of the Force books or something of ours, and then everyone tries to put arrows in there, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and that gets even more risky, All right, so what have we got? We've got gravity, right? We've got gravity, we've got directional force, and then on top of directional force, we have applied force, right? Arrows, though, they're all arrows and how they interrelate with one another, right? And that is, like I said, super important. That's what we really want to get an understanding of. So I found this online, right? This funny little illustration, but here it is, right? I was just talking about movers. Here's a box on the ground, right? And there's two forces in a sense going on at one time. There's the one you would normally think about, which is the applied force, right? So this guy is pushing on the box. He's applying force to the box. But then there's friction force as well. The energy that's sort of created that happens because of the friction of moving this flat box on the ground. It's the same thing as when you're standing. There's a force of your body pushing down on the ground, but there's the force of the ground pushing up against your body as well, right? And then you have your really squashed feet or whatever standing on the ground, right? So being aware of this. Here, this goes back to the moving situation I was talking about. There's another illustration I discovered. Most of you probably know this, but if you have a heavy box, you want to try to lift it straight back and use your thighs, right? Your quads are the biggest muscles in your body. You want to use those leg muscles to lift the weight and keep your back straight, right? You don't want to use your lower back. That's how people end up injuring themselves, right? So just like this diagram shows, although it may feel weird, you want to stick your butt out, get a straight line going as much as you can with your back and lift up. Notice it's in the legs, right? Strength's in the legs. Carrying weight, you want to try to stay as straight as you can. And best off is what you see here, right? Throw the weight on a trolley and wheel the stuff around, right? The power of wheels, go figure. Also, just notice on this dolly over here, what kind of angle do you hold that 90-degree corner at compared to the weight that you're carrying? And naturally, if you had somebody videotaping yourself and you put different boxes on there, you're going to find the sweet spot of the center of gravity over the wheel based on the boxes, their size and weight. Right? It's almost an exact, perfect visual measurement every time you do that to find the center of gravity by how it's balanced. Like, I was so sort of proud of myself when I discovered, I don't even know where I discovered it, but somewhere I saw a thing on the way to find the center of gravity of a sword, right? I used to love like ninja swords and stuff. I still have a couple of them. you put your hand on either side of the blade and you bring your hands slowly together like so. And the blade is going to keep teeter-tottering, right, naturally because of gravity until you get your hands together. And where your hands are together and the sword is balanced is where the center of gravity is for that blade. So it's balancing out the length of the blade compared to the pommel. And you find out, like, where is it? Normally you want it really close to the pommel, right? Because you want that weight like near your hand, right? So now your hand becomes the center of gravity compared to the extent of the sword, compared to your shoulder, right? And so on. So, you can do that with a kitchen knife. It's like, oh, is the kitchen knife's weight like all the way at the tail end, or is it closer to the handle? Like, where is it, right? So I used to love dorking out on that. So hopefully that all makes sense, right? So the goal is to draw with arrows, right? So when you're drawing a figure, I think I actually happen to have, let's see, it's from last time. Yeah, so I happen to have an image here from last time. Let's just quickly look at this. Just draw very quickly some arrows, right? And I'm going to hand this over to Swenley. So if I go like this, right, and then do this, I go, okay, I see that it's that. Oh, wait, that goes longer. It's like that. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I see, wait, really, I got that push, but I really want this to go down here. And this, this is going to go like this. So the fact of drawing it as arrows at least starts telling you I'm drawing with direction, right? I'm drawing with direction. Like I got this leg and it's going this way, right? The leg is going that way. Those of you that have been taught by me or actually listening to what I'm saying will see that I always am saying, this is going this way. This is going this way, right? This way, that way, right? There's always a way, right? There's a direction in my mind. I'm very aware of when I start talking about form, that it's not only going this way or that way, left, right, up and down or diagonals. It's also going away in space, right? It's like, is it coming towards me or away from me? I talk in this language of directional space, right? Direction through space, right? So keeping all of that in mind, it's like, this is going down this way, it's going that way, this is going this way, right? And so on, right? Here we come out. The deltoid is going this way. It's pointing itself to the lower arm. We get to the elbow, right? This is going, the forearm is going this way, right? The neck is going this way. The head is going this way. So you'll see the arrows are, like I said, connected. And those arrows, what they'll do in the end is they create rhythm, right? And that's what we're always, as you guys know by now, I'm sure, that's what we're always trying to get to, right? We want to try to get to these rhythms because the rhythms are what finally hold this body together, right? Now, there was orange in here, not very much orange, by the way. Orange only creates what happens when those rhythms occur. So right here would be an applied force because we crossed over. Here, there's an applied force because I crossed over, right? And then here's an applied force. As I come off the upper body, I want to go into the neck and head. So there's another crossover, you see? So that's it, right? I want you to try and use arrows. Sounds simple because drawing arrows, but you still got to draw those lines forcefully, right? The same fluidity way that we've been talking about, trying to get flow out of things. So, you can't draw an arrow like this and then just throw an arrow on it. Like that's not going to really work. You get an arrow, but you didn't really feel the momentum that's attached to it. There's like a ball of orange energy here that you're trying to move along and pass to another location, right? So it's also trying to get that to happen. Okay. Any questions? Let's see. Sometimes I see arrows in online. Yeah, we talked about that was Dark Knight. I think of directional and applied force. So Ramon says, I think of directional applied force. I would think of me in the pool of water. If I want to splash water at a greater distance, I apply strength to my arm. Yeah, that's kind of cool. The issue there is it disperses, of course, right? It goes like all over the place if you push the water. But I like that idea. Was it Ramon? Yeah, Ramon of saying, when you push that water, you have a very clear visual of seeing that, right? You're putting a lot of force into that to move that water along, Yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, I think I'm going to end my segment here. Really, I want you guys to understand that arrows are really powerful. It's not just as simple as drawing arrows. Arrows are the tool we are here discussing today. And that I want you to be aware that they are forces. It's literally a force I am thinking about. as I draw one arrow, that is a force, right? I am drawing with the concept of that line being a force. That's why we're here, right? That's why it's called force drawing, because you have to first get that meaning into your mind. So when you're drawing, keep thinking this force goes this way, arrow. This force goes this way, new arrow. This force goes this way, right? And then you're trying to find those rhythmic moments and trying to connect the whole body. Okay, it looks like we're good in the chat.
Did you see Don's question? I think it's a good one.
No, let's see. Don wrote, on the rare occasion from certain perspectives, two different arrow directions can work. And then it can be a choice of what looks better in the drawing. Can we talk about this situation? If two different arrow drawings could work, the only way I could perceive that, Don, would be, let's say I took this side of the body over here, this over here. Force is going upward and it's going downward. Okay, that could work, right? That could definitely work. And there is some applied force here, and that it's pushing out, by the way. I should have said that earlier, because I talked to you mostly about the rhythm moments, but there is always like force. Applied force is always pushing out, really. The whole body is under pressure. So there's always a sense of energy, right? And it's always pushing out. But what you can't do, I guess going back to Ghostbusters, is you can't cross the streams, right? So that's the one rule that really applies, that does not work. I can't go in here and say, I think there's a force going this way, and I think there's a force going this way. That will never work. That I can promise. In all my years of teaching and all my years of drawing the figure, I have never found this X right here anywhere in the body. I've never found the X to work. Why doesn't it work, right? The reason it doesn't work is, if you want, if we simplify this all down, as we're drawing the figure, every part of the body, let's take the human leg here, right? So here's like the waist, right? Every part of the body has got two sides, right? Especially two-dimensionally at the beginning when you're learning force. So guess what? That means you've got a 50-50 split on getting the answer right or wrong. Am I on the left side or am I on the right side? If I cross and I said, well, I think there's energy going on here, but I also think there's energy going on here, you've kind of defeated the purpose of the whole thing. Like I said, you've crossed the streams, right? So now you haven't made any decision, quite honestly. That's really the problem. You've made two choices. When there were two choices, you pick them both, which means you get neither. You really got to pick one, right? So I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but that's what you want to watch out for. You never want to cross over. Now, can things cross over because of dimensionality, right, and perspective, and maybe it looks like it crosses over? Sure, because things could overlap because of foreshortening. That can happen, but not realistically, not even in that 3D space of how you're moving through a form. It's never going to cross over at any part in the body. Okay, hope that answers your question. All right, Swami, it's all yours whenever you're ready.
All right.
All right.
Okay, let's wait for the screen to load.
Yep, it's all good.
All right, so someone in the chat asked for examples, and that's exactly what we're going to do here.
Yep.
So I'm going to start by doing photo overlays. Like we said at the very beginning, the first step is seeing it. If you cannot see it, then you cannot draw it. So hopefully after these demos, you will have, actually it's like us helping you see through our eyes. How do we look at the figure, and how do we see these directional force arrows like flowing around the body and creating these rhythms, as Mike talked about. So when the setup that I have here is a great way that you can use to do this exercise. Afterwards, you want to have the photo twice, one for you to draw over and the other one for you to refer to, because once you start drawing over, things can get hidden and become unclear. So let's get right into it. So in looking at the figure, first of all, I perceived the whole action. We did a lot of streams about gesture drawing. So I'm looking at the action as a whole and what she's doing. And the first thing that I notice is that there is this very strong curve of force on her back, so we can start by drawing actually this arrow. That's how I perceive her moving in 3D space, like Mike talked about. So that's my first arrow. Now, we normally start with drawing the torso first. Now, so in this case, if I continue here, I go into the arms, of course. So here is where I would go then back in the other direction, because I want to know where does this arrow connect me once I get to the lower part of the torso. So as you can see here, I mean, if I were to continue this and, create a C curve, well, doesn't match what their body is doing. So I know that this is not the right answer. So this arrow here is actually directing me. It's a directional force arrow. It's directing me or pointing me towards her stomach. And this is the connection or the applied force that Mike showed you earlier. So now I'm crossing over from one side of the torso to the other one. And now I'm like hitting the edge of the stomach right here. So I can go here, and actually this continues and like wraps around all the way to the rear ends right there. And as you can see here, this creates the letter S. So that's why we call this the S curve template for the torso. So this gives me an idea of how this torso is working to perform the action that I see here. And from here, now I want to prioritize the legs because they are responsible for balance. So what I can do is I can actually continue this path, and I can drive force over the top of this leg right here. And then we take the corner there at the knee. And then once I reach this point, where do I go? Well, is it pointing me towards the back? In this case, not really. I see the opportunity to continue like driving this force over the front of her lower leg right here. Now and then I reached the ankle, and from here it's really connecting me into the heel, and this is sweeping up. Let's zoom in a little bit here so you guys can see this better. So we go to the heel, and this is sweeping up into the arc of the foot, and it shoots out at the toes right here. I'm not going into the individual toes, just the overall forces and rhythm of the foot. And if you look at the pattern here, it kind of starts forming like the form of a shoe, or a sock, like we talked about when we discussed food drawing a couple of weeks back. So now I have this path, and now I want to go into the other leg. So now someone asked about force continuing or splitting. Well, I see the opportunity to go from this arrow, wrapping around and continue over the hip and going down this thigh right here. Then again, we take the corner at the knee. Again, where is this arrow directing me? Is this going up? Not really. Again, I see the opportunity to, it does go up, but it's still at the front of the lower leg. And notice that this is driving force right into that heel. Also, we have this arrow, and we have another directional force arrow here. And the foot in a 3/4 view always has the same three forces. We have the heel, and you go over the arc, and you have the directional force for the toes right there. So now we have the torso and the legs. So notice that it's all connected. So you want to find these long paths of force that connects the body and creates rhythm. So let's go into the arms. The first thing I see, now talking about splitting, I can go from this arrow right here, and I could continue into the shoulder. But I also see that I can go from here and all the way up. This is like one long curve. Even once I reach the wrist, notice that the hand is bending and facing us. So it's basically doing this. Now again, it's about directions. So notice this is one long path going to the arm all the way to the hands. And then the fingers, you can also see them as like these little arrows to begin with. So now we draw force from the back all the way into the arm and fingers. So it's splitting right here, from the torso into the arm, and it's also going from the torso into this other arm, right there over the deltoid. And notice that this is pointing us towards the back of the arm, and this is one long curve, like a suspension bridge. And here, so now I have the two directional forces, and of course we want connectivity, like Mike showed with the applied force. So we flow and connect. Now we have more connective tissue. Now flowing through that arm. And once I reach the wrist, again, do I need to go over to the other sides? Well, in this case, again, this hand is coming up. So I draw an arrow that reflects that. So we go from here and we go up like that. And then notice that each finger has like this own natural curve to it. These are going this way. And with a thumb, we can see like a clear rhythm right there. And last but not least, we have the neck and head. Now, the neck and head work as a unit. I often see students drawing the neck doing something and the head doing something else, and that doesn't work. The head is a rigid bone structure, and the movement really comes from the neck. So whatever the neck is doing, the head is basically going to follow. So to keep it simple, we can see them as a unit. So force is coming from the back. So let's reinforce this arrow. Force is coming from the back, and I see how it's creating a rhythm with the neck and head. So we go from the back and we flow right into the front of her face right there. And later on, we can split this down into the head and the neck. But in terms of seeing the big picture, this is it right here. Okay, that's example number 1. Any questions in the chat, Mike?
Nothing major that I've seen so far. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go for this guy. So here again, I'm looking at the action. First thing that I see is, of course, this clear stretch that's happening at the front of the torso. So that is going that way. Also in this case, it's kind of like opening up. It's kind of like the accordion effect. So it's stretching and opening on this side, and it's compressing on this side. Also, we can go over the top of the torso into the compression right there at the midsection. And then we can drive force underneath the pelvis, around the gluteus there. And there we have it. So this side is the compression, and here's a stretch. So this is what we call the C curve because it resembles the letter C. Here again, I want to prioritize the legs because again, he's standing, so you need to make sure that he's balanced. So I could start from here. I could say I'm going to just start this arrow there, but I like looking for the longer path. So I see the opportunity to go over the pelvis in this case and into the leg. So then we have like this whole like roads of force, and this is going down. And once we reach the knee, notice that this continues going down the front. Again, this is pointing us right into that heel back there. Now, same rhythms as before for the foot. You have the heel, we have the arc, and it shoots out at the big toe. And then I can also connect from leg to leg. Now the legs and the arms usually work as a unit. So here it seems to me like the curve is on the outside of the thigh. Now, and sometimes it might not be clear. And that's why we do iterations. You know, we draw the pose multiple times, and especially at the beginning, you can experiment with the templates. Like Mike said, it's 50-50. So it's either going to be on one side or the other. So if you're in doubt, try out both and see which one matches the action the best and the clearest. So we go to the outside thigh, and notice that this arrow is pointing us to the inside knee, and this is pointing us to the calf. No, and here again with the foot, we have the same three rhythms. No, the arc of the foot into the toes, and there is the heel back here as a support. Okay, so we establish the torso and the legs. Let's go for the arms to finish it. So here I see a rhythm between this directional force curve at the front of the torso and the deltoid. Now it's hidden, but you know, I know the templates understands how the body works. So I know that the deltoid has its own directional force back here, which then leads us back into the arm. The arm always bends as one force curve. And again, this is hidden, but based on what his hand is doing, it's safe to say that we need to continue down here and wrap around. You know, like notice these arrows are wrapping around and grabbing the hand. So they're showing the functionality, you know, how the hand is working to perform that action. And here again, the deltoid is or the directional force of the deltoid, I should say, is the bridge from the torso into the arm. So we go from here, and he's stretching this arm. So this is one long arrow. And notice the speeds with which I'm drawing, because that's how I perceive like the amount of energy that he's putting into the action, like to shoot his arm up like that. And once we reach the wrist, again, do we need to go over to the other sides? Well, in this case, his hand is pointing up like that, and then we go into the fingers. Now, so we have this nice rhythm that is occurring. And last but not least, the neck and head. Again, judging by the action, it seems like the force curve would be here at the front, because he's kind of like bending his neck slightly towards that direction. You know, so I would put the force curve here. Okay, so let me do a last one for you guys, and this one I am actually going to draw, and then I will hand it over to Mrityunjay. So here, actually, I can still draw it with the same color. So when I'm drawing, you know, I'm actually seeing the arrows as I showed you guys with the overlay. So now here, notice that I want to start with the torso, and what's my first stroke? You know, so this is an arrow because I'm drawing, I'm stroking in a direction. Now, so I see this, then we go like over the bottom of the pelvis. Again, this is another arrow. Notice that it has a very clear direction to it. And here we go over the top of the torso. So we basically have a stretch and compression again, like with the previous one. Let's see. Here again, I want to connect from the pelvis into the leg, into the thigh. Also this one arrow. And once I reach the knee, notice that this is pointing up into the back of the leg. So that creates what we call a front to back rhythm. So we have this other arrow, draw the connection. And with the foot, again, we have the arc of the foot into the toes, and we have the heel. Okay, the other leg is mostly hidden. You know, I see the foot sticking out here. And again, if I put the curve on this side, it doesn't really match what that foot is doing, right? But if I put it here, notice that now it corresponds to that action. Also, the force curve of the foot is on this side. And then notice again, the deltoid bridges us from the torso into this arm, and this arm is like shooting right at us. I think it even continues into the hands and the fingers. And here again, use the deltoid directional force to bridge us from the torso into the stretched arm. And then we continue into the hands and the fingers. And last but not least, we have the neck and heads. Again, here, not super clear at first glance. I dare to say that force is coming from the back, and it's creating a rhythm again with the face. So we go from here to here, and the heads will be sitting right there. So yes, guys, hopefully this was helpful and it helps you to understand how we see and help you to see it as well. And this is the basis. It looks deceptively simple, but this is the foundation of force drawing, being able to see these arrows, and they describe the function of the pose and the form and the shapes are going to follow after this. So don't underestimate the importance of what we're showing you here if you want to master force drawing. All right, that was my part. I'm going to give it over to Mrityunjay.
Yeah, thanks, Wenley. It was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it
We
is.
just can't. We just can't emphasize enough, guys, how arrows matter. It's the physical presence of it. Again, the direction of it, the feel of it. There's that oomph, right? And that speed. Someone just mentioned in the chat. Who said that? Something about the speed of it that I responded to. You have to have your hand moving at some certain rate. I always think of the bicycle, so when you ride a bike, it's actually really hard to ride slowly and a lot easier and a lot faster to ride it when you get up to a certain speed, right? And you can get to a place where you could, if you ride the bike and even drive it without your hands on the handlebars because it wants to right itself. And drawing the force line is very, very similar to that. You got to get a certain rate of speed up. And I think with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Speedy Mrityunjay.
All right, you just got to give me the power, then I can share.
Oh, that's right, because you left and came back in. Hold on a second. Gave him the power, and now he's disempowered, and we have to power him up. Little charge action. There you go.
Yeah, charge me up, yeah. All right. So again, you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So, all right, guys. Thank you, Swendy, for that awesome presentation. What I'm going to be doing, basically, I'm going to be taking the same pose as what Swendy took, and we're going to take this like arrow knowledge now to a next level, right? So now we have basically talked about the contours, right? Like mostly we are talking about like contours here. Okay, so let's say if I take that pose, let's say if I take that pose, right? And so let's say if you're watching like Swendy's presentation today about this pose, it would be more like this, right? You're saying like, oh, the arrows are going here, arrows are now it's like switching the side, it's like coming right here, and it's like going here into the arms, okay, and such like that. But now we haven't talked about the glue to all of this, okay, like which is like binding all of these together, okay. Now we kind of talked about this a little bit now, but we're gonna stress a little bit more onto that. And the simple answer to that is the applied force, okay. So you basically got the directional forces, okay. So here are directional forces, but these directional forces becomes applied forces, okay. So where is this going? So the one thing that you just want to ask yourself is like, okay, where is this arrow going? Okay, it's going to the next directional force and like hitting it. Now you want to think of these arrows as like literally hitting to the other arrow to actually create that that curve, okay. So you can think of these arrows as like simple lines, okay. And let's say a meteor came, okay, or any sort of like strong force came. You can use any sort of metaphor that you want, but that is actually curving it out, okay. So straight line, applying the force, and it's curving out, okay. Now here's a straight line, okay, here's a straight line, and now this force is now hitting this one, okay. So literally have to be sound like that, okay. And that is what Mike is talking about, a little bit of speed, okay. I cannot actually feel the applied force, or I actually cannot feel even the directional forces just if I draw them like that, right? Okay. So you just want to hit it at a certain speed, okay? Now for some guys this would be faster, for some guys it would be a little bit slower. But there has to be like a range, okay? So out of this range, okay, from here, like this is where everybody would lie, okay. You cannot be like super slow, and yeah, I mean you can be faster, but you won't be able to feel it, okay. So for example, if you do this, let's say if you just draw like this, right? So it's like too fast to even experience it, okay. So stay in that middle range, I would say, okay, like yeah. So that's the answer of the question. But anyway, now the thing is, now we have talked about the applied force. See, like the applied force is in the middle as well, okay. Like it's going across the body. So now the consciousness that I'm going to give it to you, that okay, like all these applied forces, like all these arrows that we're talking about today, doesn't not even existing, I mean, it doesn't only exist on the on the contours, like let's say the sides of the body, but it also does exist in the middle of the body too, okay. So we are gonna take like this idea, okay, and I know like many of you guys are already like knowing about this, what I'm gonna be taking this to. Basically I'm taking to sculpting, okay. So you know, like all of this like forces, okay, inside the body, like outside the body, but like imagine these like little arrows going across the body as well, okay. I cannot make like very accurate arrows until I you know, make the brush size smaller, but this is the consciousness, okay. Which means, you know, I'm really saying, I'm just saying that force is existing like everywhere, okay, like all here as well, okay. So if I'm making a shape, let's say an S torso, I'm basically saying force is all existing there, right here. So we can we can change this a little bit, okay. So instead of just saying a line, okay, see right now till this point we're just using a line as an arrow, but now what I can say is like this whole shape is an arrow, okay. See how this like whole shape is bringing that energy into this shape right here, okay. And then this one is taking it to forward and forward and forward and forward, right? That's how the flows actually goes like, okay. So just have this consciousness, just really observe this, that force doesn't exist not only on the contour, but also in the middle, okay, like also in the middle of the body. So taking that knowledge, and we can apply this to this pose right here. And yeah, we can do like a little bit of sculpting and we'll see like how those arrows work inside of this figure, okay. So let's do it. Let's take the same approach as what Swenley did. This is a C torso, okay. You can start from somewhere, see, and yeah, one of the guys, I forget the name, but they mentioned in the chat that, oh, well, how do you maintain the proportions with these arrows? Well, the thing is, you have to think of them as like energies, okay. Well, energy is invisible, right? We can just see the effects of the energy, But the thing is, we are giving a visual representation to the energy using these lines. Okay, like we are saying, okay, these are the energies that's flowing inside the body, flowing, on the contour of the body, like all of that. Okay, you don't have to maintain any sort of like proportions with those. Okay, like see, I usually draw like this. Okay, now it's not like, oh, this is the contour of the body, or that is the contour of the body. Okay, I'm just I'm just like thinking about the energy and where it's like flowing to, and I'm giving it a visual representation and a path. Okay, like using these lines basically. Okay, so you don't have to like think about the proportions and such. And you can, when you're polishing it later, when you're going to do a second pass or a third pass on top of it, then you can just like tighten this up a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, just think of these arrows as the representation of the energy. Okay, like see, literally you're learning how to draw with force, right? What is force? Force is the energy that's flowing inside the body. Okay, inside the living beings. So and now it gets connected to that thought, what Mike mentioned is like, you want to like change the way you see things so that the things would change, right? For you. Okay, so think of them as energies. Okay, don't be like super conscious about it, or don't be like super accurate with it. Okay, all right, let's go for it. So taking on like all of those things which I kind of mentioned here, and then we are gonna do a C torso for this. Okay, like that one. Okay, so this is a C torso. As you can see, there's a like a lot of compression right here. Okay, so see, like all the energy is like traveling from here to here. Okay, right there. And yeah, I'm like taking those arrows. It's gonna be same as like what Swinley did, so I'm just gonna do it quickly because you've already seen that. Okay, like here, right there. So you see like this energy right here. Again, see, I'm using the arrow. Okay, I don't know why I do this right after like actually drawing that form, but I kind of like love it because it brings me like more like consciousness of like, okay, that is the energy right there. Okay, I take this. Looking at this post for the first time, I always think like, how is this even working? Like this leg right here. All right, I'm just gonna be drawing that feet, that foot here really quick. This arm is coming out towards us. Right, there's a hand, and this hand is just like going up ahead right here. I'm going to be focusing on the torso mostly because that's where like most of the form lies about this one, and that's like where which is the most interesting about it. Now see, like what I'm going to do about this is see, like we have all the arrows. I can actually draw them. This is going this way, it's going this way, it's going this way, it's going into here, it's going into the leg here, it's going across the leg right there. But see what I'm starting to do right now. See, I can make some like little lines, and think of these lines as actually arrows. Okay, now we have done like a lot of streams on, yeah, potentially like at least 5 to 6 streams on like sculpting, or where or actually where we have mentioned sculpting. So if you want to get in detail, just like go and watch them. But where is this like actually coming from? This is actually the source, of like where the sculpting is actually coming from. It is basically these arrows. Okay, think of like every line as like little arrow. Okay, like going across. So see, because the flow is the same, what I can do here is make a path for you. Okay, so this is the path, and then I'm gonna be sculpting in the same direction. So there we go. Now see here, I can like make it like really accurate, to be honest. See right here. See, I'm actually sculpting in the same direction. So see like the red path, like how it's going from here to here. So I'm sculpting in the same direction as this like path is going. Okay, and this is what's gonna bring out like form like really, really great. Okay, now here's a little confusing, so I can just make this like torso part a little bit more bigger for you, and I can like show you actually in a better situation. So there's a rear end. This is how it's going. This leg, I'm not focusing on the leg too much right here.
All right, and see like how all those this is really beautiful, by the way. Look at like all the squash in there. So amazing. All right, right here, right, something like this. Okay, now again, the red path, we'll see how this is going. This is going that way. Okay, now see, I can take my lines, I take my arrows, okay, and sculpt it literally in this direction. That's going over here. Okay, like this. I can come down here, I can see I'm still sculpting in the same direction, right here, right here. Even on the rear end, I can do the same thing. Okay. So that's how it works, okay? So what you want to do is like take your form, okay? And whatever the way it is moving, you know, yeah, like, and the first thing that you need is obviously, you want to learn this, right? It's like where it's moving, which is what we call templates, okay? So template is like, okay, is this template like moving, or what is the energy of that, let's say a leg in here? It's a front to back, or is it a front to front, or is it an outside into outside? And then once you figure it out, once you figure out these arrows, then you actually start to like move into this applied force, okay? Yeah. For example, let's take another one here really quick. Let's take another example. So let's say I have a outside inside outside leg. Okay, let's say something like this. So see, I figured out the arrows first. I decided on which template I need to draw on, and then I can actually figure out about all of this path in the middle of the body. Okay, into the middle of this form, which is a leg here. Okay, I see like all the sculpting lines right there. And see here, I can polish it up to a great extent. See right here, right here. See, I can like see the path right here. I'm sculpting in the same direction right there. Okay. So that's how it goes basically. Okay. We can take another example here really quick. Let's take this one. Move that. How much time you have left, guys?
Just like a minute
minutes.
or so,
Okay.
because there's something else I want to still show.
Okay. I'll do this under a minute. Great. So let's go. So I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do this. Think of them as arrows, guys. Okay. Just going to do that. Do this. Yeah. See, like once you become efficient with it, like once you know, like, oh, where are those arrows actually going? You can be like super quick with it. You don't have to like think as much. It's the same thing right there. Okay, we have the arrows coming in both these hands right here as well. Okay, this is going that way, it's going this way. So you can sculpt this a little bit too as well. Oh, neck and the head. Always forgetting about it. See, there's the neck and the head. See this form going this way, you can sculpt that a little bit. This form is coming towards us, so it's more like this. And that's the crotch side. And yeah, if you want to like sculpt it more, you can just go with the same path. Okay, right here, right here. All right, guys. Hopefully you like this part. You know, hopefully you like this, like gluing it all together, and yeah, you get some great insights on how to use it. Okay. All right. Let's head back to this structure. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Mrityunjay. That was awesome.
Yeah, very welcome.
Speed, right? So, you know, we left between Swinley and Mrityunjay talking about the speed of line. You got to keep that line going to ride that bike, right? And keep that rate of speed up to allow it to even feel like force to yourself, okay? I wanted to close with some student examples that have been using force really effectively in a three-dimensional space. You know, as you guys saw with Mrityunjay, force isn't just those contours and creating rhythms, but that they can go internal as well. So I've grabbed 3 of our students who have been doing really incredible work with this. Our first student is Arno, right? So just, you know, fantastic job of sculpting with force, line, and directions. And the contours, of course, feel very forceful also, right? So really, really awesome. Then the second artist is Joe Kim, right? Like, look at also the gestures, right? These are a minute and a half drawings, 2 minutes, right? So look at how much you start to learn to accomplish in a very, very short amount of time. And it's that iteration and that effort that gets you here, right? Like, really beautiful work. Excellent job of keeping force and fluidity going, using surface line. It's all arrows, folks, right? Today, the lesson is, this is all really about arrows. Look at how that's moving around. Joe Kim's been being mentored by Swenley. And then we have Suman, all right? Like, look at that. That's masterful. I got to tell you, I've been teaching a very long time. That is masterful work, right? That amount of specificity in the line, the control in the line, the pull from the back through the neck. I just love this moment right here. Every time I bring this up to show other students, talking about force line and surface line and sculpting, right? Look at that pull over the trapezius and then through the neck and up to the chin. You really feel the pulling out of the model's chin into their hand, right? So just really, really great work. And you can see here's his process, right? These are basically the steps that he's learned at drawingforce.com of, you know, sketching out the forces, getting those rhythms down, making sure the whole body works, understanding construction. He's using all the tools that we teach at drawingforce.com to do so, and then getting to such a masterful drawing, right? So you can do it. All of you out there right now watching us, you're watching this video, even if it's 5 days from now, a year from now, you can do this, and we can definitely help you do this. You know, Suman was not doing this prior, right? So you could do it. You just got to work at it. I think guidance helps, of course. You'll get there fast.
But, you know, we can get you there, okay? So I'm going to close on that. I'm going to close on, you know, visit drawingforce.com. That's where Swenley, Mrityunjay, and I all live. That's where we work. That's where we teach mentorship. That's where the Discord is. I noticed the Discord was discussed in today's chat. That's where the Discord is. Come and check us out. We are more than happy to help you truly understand and get a grasp of everything that you're learning here on this channel to make sure you really get it, right? You really get it, and you start moving on your personal journey and accomplishing the goals that you're after, okay? So if you like the channel itself, you know, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification if you don't want to worry about missing it. And last but not least, we did have a winner last week. We had the whole hat challenge. I was wearing a Superman hat. It goes back sometime to when we were doing timed drawing sessions. It was in the 2-minute video. Angel was the winner. He got a full year of standard membership, a value of $300 for free, which is really cool. He wrote me, and I would say between 20 minutes to half an hour, the answer. There were many of you that wrote after that, and thank you for, you know, for writing. But man, he was on it. So Angel is our winner. There'll be other surprise contests, of course, in the future. So pay attention to us. Pay attention to what we're wearing. Pay attention to what we're talking about, or if there's some kind of doodle or some small thing that happens, I might do that again and go, oh, which one did we do this little sketch on this and this and this, right? And that's it. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe. Have fun drawing. Go draw with arrows. Spend the rest of the morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time zone you're in, going and trying to draw with arrows and start understanding that connectivity. Keep that speed up. And we will see you next Friday for another awesome lesson. Take care. And thank you, Swami Mrityunjay.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.